Good morning. Today's Wednesday. It is the 19th day of Adar. And we continue with chapter 35. Chapter 35 in the Tanya focuses on the power of doing the physical, the actual mitzvahs. And today, the Alter Rebbe continues this. And he focuses on the difference between the effect that the Torah study has on the person, or the godliness that it brings down into this world, versus the mitzvahs, the physical mitzvahs. So we learned about the light that is upon us. And this light, the godly light, needs fuel, which we covered the last 2 days, that the fuel that we need cannot be just the neshama, just the fact that we have a soul and with the soul is connected with Hashem and loves Hashem. Why not? Because the soul, no matter how great of a level of the neshama is the soul, even the soul of a tzaddik, who is really in love with Hashem into the highest level of love, which he calls the ahava b'ta'anugim. Nevertheless, there is the tzaddik, there is the self, the fact that the tzaddik is not one with Hashem. It is the tzaddik that loves Hashem. It is you who loves God. So there is the you and there's the God, and you want to be one. That's why there is no complete absorption into the light of Hashem. So no matter how great your neshama is, that will not be enough to be completely one from every aspect. This is why we need the mitzvahs. The mitzvah, it says in the Zohar, it says that this is what King Solomon, Shlomo Melech says, "Shemen al roishcha lo yechsar," do not have any lack of oil on you, and the oil is the mitzvah, because just like oil is being completely consumed in the fire, unlike the wick, the body is like the wick. The wick is consumed, but it's left some ashes. The oil is completely consumed in the fire. There's nothing else left. And the same thing is the mitzvah. The mitzvah is the will of Hashem. There is no separate entity there. And it is the inner will of God. And that's why the mitzvah is the oil that really brings the fuel to keep the light of Hashem on the person. So the Alter Rebbe continues now to explain that there is really the difference between the Torah study, because after all, Torah study is also uniting with Hashem. What is the difference between the Torah study and the mitzvahs? This is what the Alter Rebbe is going to explain now. Says the Alter Rebbe, V'hinei when a person studies Torah, azai nishmasoi shei nafshoi ha'elekis im shnei levusheo apnimim levadam shem koyach adibul u'machshava. What happens when you study Torah? You become united with Hashem. Your soul becomes united with God. Why? Because the Torah study is the study of God's will. But which parts of the soul becomes united with Hashem? The soul has its garments, as explained earlier in the Tanya. You have the garments, the three garments, the thoughts, the speech, and the action. The thoughts of Torah, the speaking of Torah, the action of doing mitzvahs. Now, the thoughts and the speech are considered more inner, the inner garments. Why inner garments? Why is it called inner garments? Because those are garments that are interconnected with the soul itself. Because thoughts, you cannot stop thinking. It is one with your soul. You constantly think. You cannot stop. Speaking, you can stop. I know some people cannot stop speaking, but in general, speaking is something that is not so you can stop talking. But it's still, the speech is connected with you, with innerly connected versus action. Action is something which is totally exterior. You're acting with something that is totally outside of you. So the action is considered the exterior garment of the soul versus the inner garments which are the thought and the speech. So when you study Torah, what part of the neshama, what part of the garments of the soul are mainly connected with Hashem? Those are the inner garments, which are the koyach hadibur, koyach hamachshava, that the faculties of speech and thought. And they in the chlolis be'oyer Hashem ein soif baruch hu, and they are absorbed within the light of Hashem when they're doing the thinking and speaking the words of Hashem. And they are merged within it in a perfect unity. And as explained earlier also, that the unity that we have when you study Torah, there is no other unity, not even when you do the mitzvahs. Because the unity, and when you study Torah, your mind is in the Torah, and the Torah is in your mind. It is like a two-way connection and bond. And that is why, being that this is the wisdom of Hashem, and you study the Torah of Hashem, so your mind becomes completely one with Hashem in a way that no other thing can unite that way. And this constitutes the resting of the Shekhinah, God's presence, the divine presence, on your godly soul. Kemaimar Razal, as our sages of blessed memory said, Sha'afilu echad she'yoshev ve'osek b'Torah shechina imay. Even if one person sits alone and studies Torah, the divine presence is with him. There's obviously different levels. When you have 10 people studying Torah together, Hashem is there in a much more revealed way. But even if you study Torah by yourself, alone, the divine presence is there with you. You're united. So that happens when you study the Torah. However, kedei lehamshich. But in order to bring down oyer ve'aoras hashchina gam al gufay ve'nafshay abahamis shehi achiyunis amunubeshes begufay mamash. In order to draw down the light and the radiance of the Shekhinah upon the body and the animal soul as well, which is the vitalizing soul that is actually clothed in the body. You want to bring the light of Hashem not just on your spiritual part, not just on the inner part of the soul, inner garments of the soul. If you want to bring the Shekhinah, the divine presence also on the physical part, tzorich lekayem mitzvos ma'asiyos anasos al yedei guf mamash. One must fulfill the practical mitzvahs, the commandments that involve the faculty of action, which is performed with the body itself. And then what happens? When you do the actual mitzvahs, she'az koyach haguf mamash sheba'asiyah zu nichlal be'oyer Hashem u'retzoinoi u'meyuchad boi beyichud gamo. So in this way, the actual power of the body engaged in this act is absorbed in the divine light, and the will and merges with it in perfect unity. You're having the effect of the Shekhinah to drive down, to be absorbed into the physical part. That's what happens when you do the mitzvahs. V'hu levush hashlishi shel nefesh elokis, which is the third garment. The action is the third garment of the godly soul. So what happens then? When the divine presence, when Hashem's presence is merged into the physical body, then what happens is that you're transforming that potential, that energy from potentially bad into good. And then, in addition, the power of the vitalizing soul actually clothed within the body. So the power of that soul which is derived from klipas noiga. Klipas noiga is, as we mentioned, the neutral shell. Refers to there is the evil shells that conceal godliness. The neutral shell that does conceal godliness, but also has the ability of being transformed. And when you use the body to perform the actual mitzvahs, to put on tefillin, to light the candles, to give tzedakah, any mitzvah you do with your hands, then the power that vitalizes this energy and the physical object itself, they all turn and they are transformed from nisapech mera letoiv v'nichlal mamash b'kedusha kenefesh elokis mamash. Is transformed from evil to good and is actually absorbed into holiness, exactly like the divine soul. Me'achar shehu hu hapoel v'oseh ma'aseh hamitzvos. For it is the power of the animal soul that implements and performs this act that constitutes the mitzvah. The godly soul cannot perform the mitzvah without the animal soul, without the vitalizing soul. Shebil adai lo yoisa nefesh elokis poyeles baguf klal. Without it, the power of the animal soul, the divine soul would not affect the body at all. Since it is spiritual and the body is physical and corporal. So what happens? The physical and the spiritual cannot connect naturally. The intermediary between them, between the godly soul and the body, is the vitalizing soul. The vitalizing animal soul that is clothed in man's blood, which is in his heart and throughout the body. There you have the vitalizing soul. So therefore, this is the power of the actual physical mitzvah. And the Rebbe points out here also that in addition to the fact that this is the intermediary, there is also the fact that in order to connect the soul with the body, even not only the godly soul, even the vitalizing soul. If you think about it, you have a physical body. What's the difference between a living person and somebody that just passed away? God forbid. Same body, same organs, everything is there, but the soul is not there. We say the blessings of Asher Yatzar every time we use the restroom, And we finish that blessing, we say, Baruch atah Hashem, blessed are you Hashem, Rofei chol basar umafli la'asot. That He cures all the flesh, and He does wonders in His doing. What is this referring to? What wonders is this referring to? Our sages explain that this is the wonders that God makes the soul connect to the body. Because there are two opposites. The connecting the soul to the body is only with a power which is much, much greater than both. So in the actual action, when you perform a mitzvah with the action, what this expresses, it expresses the koach amafli lases, the koach, the power of Hashem, which is above all, that can combine and connect the soul and the body, which are two opposites. So when this is expressed in doing a mitzvah, so what is doing the mitzvah here? What is revealed in the physical body right now in the form of the mitzvah? That power, which is a koach hamafli lases, which is above everything, that is able to connect it to, is coming and is being revealed in the physical action. And therefore, this is the advantage that we have in doing a mitzvah, an actual physical mitzvah, versus even this Torah study. This is the ultimate oil that is being consumed and being one with Hashem. That the physical body expresses the deepest connection with Hashem when you do the mitzvah through the physical action. So this is what we take from today's shir. Again, the focus on the one end, the study Torah is great, and that study Torah is a unity between the person and God in a way that there's no other unity. And at the same time, the actual mitzvah represents even more of drawing down, first of all, drawing down the godliness into the lowest physical part. That draws down when you do the mitzvah. And even more so the fact that this is drawing a higher level of godliness, because in order to have this spiritual connected with the physical, you need to get something which is koach hamafli lases, the power that does wonders, which is the highest level of godliness. So thank you very much for joining today's shir, and make sure to share this. Share with friends, subscribe, and get your fellows, get your friends to subscribe and join live. Any questions we can take now? Questions?